Father abandons autistic son, then watches stranger do what he never could. Your support absolutely lights up my world. Before we jump into today's incredible story, would you mind hitting subscribe? It helps me share more heartwarming tales with our amazing community. Here's my promise. I personally respond to every comment because I genuinely love connecting with you. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from right now. Let's build this beautiful family together and dive into something truly extraordinary. The ceramic plate slipped from Tyler's trembling fingers, shattering against the restaurant floor in a symphony of broken pieces that seemed to echo through Emma's very soul. She watched the 8-year-old boy crumble inward, his small hands flying to cover his ears as the familiar chorus of disapproval began. Some parents just don't teach their children proper behavior anymore. The elderly woman at table 6 hissed, her voice cutting through the dinner crowd like a blade. Emma's dish towel stilled in her hands as she observed the scene unfolding before her. The boy's shoulders shook with silent sobs while his nanny, a rigid woman whose attention had been glued to her phone all evening, finally looked up with visible irritation creasing her features. "Tyler, honestly," the nanny scolded, her sharp tone drawing even more unwanted attention from neighboring tables. But Emma saw something different in the child's careful movements, in the way he had methodically arranged his napkin earlier, counting crackers twice before selecting one. Recognition bloomed in her chest, a painful, intimate understanding that transported her back 20 years to her own childhood dining room, where her younger brother had exhibited the same precise rituals, the same desperate need for order in a chaotic world. The businessman in the tailored suit at table 12 signaled their manager with the imperious gesture of someone accustomed to having problems eliminated rather than solved. Emma could already see how this would end: the polite but firm request to leave, the walk of shame past judging eyes, the further retreat of a child who simply experienced the world differently. The decision crystallized in Emma's mind like ice forming on a winter window. She abandoned her cleaning station, ignoring her manager's surprised expression, and knelt beside Tyler's chair. The restaurant's cacophony faded to background noise as she made herself small and non-threatening, remembering every technique she'd learned from years of watching her brother navigate similar storms. "Hey there," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the dining room chatter. "I know everything feels too loud right now. Want to help me with something really important?" Tyler's tear-stained face emerged from behind his protective hands, revealing eyes that held both wariness, frustration replaced by weary gratitude. It's been just the two of them for a while now. Tyler needs extra patience sometimes. Not everyone understands that. Emma nodded, watching Tyler's careful, methodical approach with growing admiration. "He's doing great. Look how perfectly he's organizing everything. That's a real gift." She meant every word. Tyler's systematic thinking reminded her of her brother, who had channeled his unique perspective into a successful engineering career once someone had recognized his talents instead of focusing on his differences. But as the evening progressed, the man in the corner grew increasingly agitated. His hands raked through his hair repeatedly, his expensive watch catching the light as he checked his phone with mounting urgency. When Tyler accidentally dropped a crayon that rolled toward the back of the restaurant, the stranger rose abruptly from his table. Emma's protective instincts surged to life. She had witnessed too many confrontations involving children deemed difficult by impatient adults. Moving quickly, she retrieved the wayward crayon and positioned herself between Tyler and the approaching figure. "Excuse me," she said, her voice carrying the polite firmness born from 3 years of restaurant diplomacy. "Is there something I can help you with?" Up close, the man appeared younger than his shadowed surveillance had suggested, perhaps early 40s, with exhausted eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and expensive clothing that couldn't quite mask the brokenness in his posture. His watch probably cost more than Emma earned in 6 months, yet something about his bearing suggested wealth couldn't purchase what he truly needed. He started, then stopped, his gaze drifting past Emma toward Tyler, who watched their interaction with curious eyes. "Sir, if you're making other customers uncomfortable, I'm going to have to ask you to either order something or leave." Emma continued, keeping her voice low but unmistakable in its resolve. The stranger's face cycled through a complex array of emotions: surprise, what looked like profound pain, and then something that might have been admiration. "You're protecting him," he said quietly, almost to himself, wonder coloring his voice. "I'm doing my job," Emma replied, though they both understood her actions transcended mere professional duty. "This is a family restaurant, and that little boy has just as much right to be here as anyone else." The man studied her face for a long moment, and Emma could have sworn she saw tears gathering in his eyes. "You have no idea," he whispered, his voice fracturing slightly, "how long I've been waiting to hear someone say that." Before Emma could process his cryptic response, Tyler's voice rang out from their corner booth, pure joy radiating from every syllable. "Emma, I finished my picture. Want to see?" As she turned to answer Tyler's call, Emma couldn't shake the unsettling sensation that forces far larger than she comprehended were converging in this quiet corner of Miller's family restaurant, transforming an ordinary evening into something that would alter multiple lives forever. Tyler's artwork stopped Emma in her tracks. The drawing displayed remarkable detail and emotional accuracy, her kneeling figure captured with precision down to the small butterfly pin on her apron that most people never noticed. Across the top, careful block letters spelled out, "Nice lady." "This is absolutely beautiful, Tyler," Emma said, genuinely moved by the child's artistic memory and the pure affection radiating from his creation. Tyler beamed, carefully placing the drawing in a folder pulled from his small backpack with the same methodical precision he applied to everything else. Mrs. Patterson glanced at her phone and frowned. "Tyler, your father was supposed to pick you up 20 minutes ago. Let me try calling him again." She stepped away from the table, her hushed phone conversation growing increasingly concerned with each failed attempt. The stranger approached again, this time moving with deliberate slowness, his hands raised in a peaceful gesture that did little to ease Emma's protective stance. "Please," he said, his voice rough with barely contained emotion. "I need to tell you something." "Whatever you're selling, this isn't the time or place." Emma replied firmly, though something in his expression, a raw vulnerability that reminded her of Tyler during his earlier overwhelm, made her pause. "I'm not selling anything," the man said quietly, his words carrying the weight of confession. "I'm Michael Chen, and Tyler is my son." The revelation hit Emma like a physical blow. She looked between Tyler, still contentedly organizing crayons, and this well-dressed stranger claiming paternity, struggling to reconcile the impossible connection. "That's impossible," she managed. "Mrs. Patterson said his father was working late." "Mrs. Patterson doesn't know I'm here," Michael admitted, his voice breaking. "I've been coming here for weeks, sitting in that corner, watching Tyler from a distance. I've been too afraid to approach him." Emma's protective stance wavered as she witnessed genuine anguish etched across this man's features. "Afraid of your own son?" Michael's laugh emerged bitter and self-loathing. "You saw what happened earlier, how those people looked at him, judged him. I've been doing the same thing for months. Every time Tyler has a meltdown or needs extra time to process something, I see it as a failure, my failure." Tears flowed freely down his face now. "I hired Mrs. Patterson because I convinced myself he needed professional care that I couldn't provide. I moved him out of my house because I thought he'd be better off without a father who couldn't understand him." Emma's heart broke for both of them as she glanced at Tyler, still obliviously content in his organized world, unaware of the emotional storm raging mere feet away. "But you're here now," she said softly. "I've been watching you with him for the past hour," Michael continued, his words tumbling out like water through a broken dam. "You did everything right, everything I should have been doing all along. You saw a child who needed kindness, not a problem to be managed." He wiped his eyes with trembling hands. "How did you know what to do?" Emma looked back at Tyler, memories of her brother and her own childhood struggles flooding back. "Because someone once showed me the same kindness." The restaurant had grown quieter as the dinner crowd thinned, but the intensity of their conversation seemed to expand to fill the entire space. Tyler looked up from his crayons, sensing the changed energy around him. His eyes found Michael's face, and for a heartbreaking moment, father and son simply stared at each other across a distance that seemed both physical and emotional. "Daddy?" Tyler's voice was small, uncertain. "Are you mad at me?" The question shattered something inside Michael. He dropped to his knees right there in the middle of the restaurant, abandoning all concern for appearances or dignity. "Oh, Tyler," he whispered, his voice thick with tears. "I'm not mad at you. I'm mad at myself. I'm so sorry." Emma watched as Tyler carefully set down his crayons and walked slowly toward his father. The boy's movements were deliberate, thoughtful, as if he was processing this unexpected reunion step by careful step. When he reached Michael, he gently touched his father's face, wiping away a tear with the profound tenderness that only children possess. "Mrs. Patterson said you were too busy for me," Tyler said matter-of-factly. "But Emma said sometimes grown-ups need help understanding things too, like how I need help with loud noises." Michael's breath caught. "Emma said that?" Tyler nodded seriously. "She said everyone's brain works differently, and that's what makes the world interesting. She said my way of thinking is special, not wrong." He paused, considering his next words carefully. "Are you learning how to understand me better, Daddy?" The simple question cut through years of Michael's guilt and self-doubt like sunlight piercing storm clouds. "Yes," he managed to say, his voice barely steady. "I'm trying to learn. Will you help teach me?" Tyler smiled then, the same bright smile Emma had seen when he'd finished his drawing. "I'm a really good teacher. Emma said so." He looked back at Emma, who was discreetly wiping her own eyes. "Emma knows about special brains because her brother has one too." Michael stood slowly, his eyes meeting Emma's over Tyler's head. "Thank you," he said, and those two words carried the weight of everything he couldn't yet express. "I don't know how to repay you for showing me what I should have seen all along." Emma shook her head. "You don't owe me anything, but Tyler deserves a father who sees his strengths, not just his challenges." Mrs. Patterson returned from her phone calls, stopping short when she saw Michael. "Mr. Chen, I didn't know you were coming tonight. I was just trying to reach you." "There's been a change of plans," Michael said, his arm settling naturally around Tyler's shoulders. "Tyler and I have some catching up to do." He looked down at his son. "Would you like to have ice cream and talk? Just you and me?" Tyler's face lit up like sunrise. "Can Emma come too? She likes vanilla with sprinkles, just like me." Michael smiled, really smiled for the first time in months. "I think that's a perfect idea." He turned to Emma. "If you're not too busy saving other families tonight, would you join us?" Emma looked at these two souls who had found their way back to each other, partly through her small act of recognition and kindness. "I'd be honored," she said, knowing instinctively that this was just the beginning of their healing journey. 6 months later, Emma smiled as she watched Tyler carefully arrange art supplies in what had become their regular corner booth at Miller's. Michael sat across from his son, no longer the broken man in the expensive suit, but a father who had learned to see the world through his child's unique and brilliant perspective. Their weekly dinner tradition had become the highlight of Emma's work week, a reminder that sometimes the most profound changes begin with the smallest acts of understanding. "Emma, look what I made in art therapy," Tyler announced proudly, pulling out a vibrant painting of their restaurant table surrounded by swirls of warm colors. "Dr. Martinez says I'm really good at showing feelings with colors. This one shows how happy I feel here." Michael reached over and gently ruffled Tyler's hair, the gesture natural and full of love. "It's beautiful, buddy, just like all your artwork." The easy intimacy between them now stood in stark contrast to that first night when fear and misunderstanding had kept them separated by invisible walls. "How did the school meeting go this week?" Emma asked as she joined them during her break. "Really well," Michael replied, his eyes bright with pride. "Tyler's new teacher actually listens when I explain what works for him, and I finally understand what you meant about advocating instead of apologizing." He paused, watching Tyler add finishing touches to his painting. "I joined a support group for parents of children with autism. I'm learning that I'm not alone in this journey." Tyler looked up from his artwork. "Daddy doesn't get as worried about me anymore, and he learned about STEM toys." He pulled out a small fidget spinner from his pocket. "This one helps when the world gets too loud." Emma felt familiar warmth bloom in her chest, the same feeling she'd experienced watching her brother grow into his strengths and find his place in the world. You know what, Tyler? I think you've both been excellent teachers for each other. Emma, Michael said quietly, his voice serious, I need you to know that what you did that night didn't just change Tyler's evening, it changed our entire lives. You showed me how to see my son as he really is, brilliant, artistic, and kind, instead of focusing on what I thought was broken. Tyler nodded enthusiastically. And now Daddy knows that when I line up my food, it's not weird, it's organizing. And when I need quiet time, it's not hiding, it's recharging my brain. Emma felt tears prick her eyes as she witnessed the beautiful transformation of their relationship. The best part is watching you two become a real team. We're thinking about starting a family group at the community center, Michael added, for parents and kids who want to learn about neurodiversity together. Would you consider helping us get it started? Emma looked around the restaurant where this all began, where a simple act of kindness had rippled outward into something beautiful and lasting. I can't think of anything I'd rather do. Tyler carefully put his painting away and looked at both adults with the serious expression he wore when he had something important to say. You know what I learned? Sometimes the best families aren't the ones that start perfect. They're the ones that learn how to love each other the right way. As Emma watched father and son pack up their art supplies together, moving in the comfortable synchronization of people who truly understood each other, she realized Tyler was absolutely right. Love wasn't about being perfect. It was about being willing to learn, to grow, and to see each other with clear, compassionate eyes. Sometimes the most beautiful transformations begin with the smallest acts of understanding. And watching Tyler and Michael had taught Emma that kindness, offered at exactly the right moment, could indeed change everything.